Welcome back to the Act Two podcast, a podcast for the real life working screenwriter. I'm Tasha Hugh.
And I'm Josh Hallman. And today, Tasha, I
Yes,
jumped in on you. We're talking about how to have a good relationship with your reps.
yes. We've talked about managers and agents before, but I feel like, A, this is a massive topic and is a huge issue with writers, I think. I feel like we're always talking about our relationship with our reps. So this episode specifically is talking about how to have a good relationship with your reps. And we actually have a
Yeah.
lot of questions today that came from other writers who reached out on ActTwoWriters@gmail.com. So you can do the same if you want, if you have some questions or concerns you want covered. But yeah, we're gonna go through a lot today, actually. I'm excited.
I'm excited too because we overthink this. Everyone overthinks their relationships with their reps at all times.
Is the overthinking necessary though?
That's what we're going to figure out today. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I think the first place we should start is is it even necessary to have a good relationship with reps?
I think that's actually a really good starting point because I've heard so many different versions of what a satisfying relationship is for writers. Like there are some writers who are very happy not having a close relationship with their reps. They just use their reps as strategic tools, meaning they'll reach out to them when they need them and
Mhm.
then the rep knows that that's the relationship and there's not a lot of like creative back and forth. There's not a lot of hey, let's strategize about what I should be doing this year. The writer controls all of that and they just reach out to the rep when they need them. And then there are other people who they really want their relationship to be super close and constantly be talking to their rep about creative and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the writer.
Yeah. And I think success always cures any problem that you have with anyone. Like if you have a if you don't like your reps, but you're having like a really successful year, you can you're good.
Yeah, because you had a successful year without having to have a great relationship with your reps, which I think tells you how much they maybe are necessary in your particular career. But I mean, I think even in those cases that I said before about the writers who use them a little differently than I think you and I use our reps, meaning they're a little bit more distant and only reach out to them when necessary. They consider that a good relationship, and they consider it a good relationship because when they do reach out every 6 months or whenever, their rep does what they ask them to do. And I
Yeah,
think that's very key. So, is it necessary to have a good relationship with your reps? Yes. Is it
I
necessary to be
agree.
friends with your reps? No, that doesn't have to be the case.
I also agree. Yes, you do need a good relationship because it can go sour if you don't like each other.
I mean, we've talked about that with you and different reps that you've had sort of contentious relationships with, and it just can't work. Just it really is like a romantic relationship, a marriage, because it's just if it starts sour, if there are things you guys aren't talking about, like it's only going to continue to boil over.
Yeah, that's true. And not to jump ahead too far here, but like before you sign with a rep or, with your agent or manager, it is always just so important to get all of your questions out and all of your concerns, voice them, talk about where you want your career to go. Anything that you feel like you need to talk about, that should be done prior to signing. It's like a relationship. Got to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. When you start off, and again, we've talked about this in previous episodes about how we got our managers. Like I remember one manager I sat down with, he had this really specific view of what my career should be, which is that I should be the action thriller person.
Mm,
Which I wouldn't mind writing John Wick. That would be amazing. But I don't want that to solely be my career. In fact, my career has taken a completely different turn, which I'm very happy about, which is more like fantasy, sci-fi, world building, fun stuff like that.
yeah,
So, being able to say no to someone right up front and know right up front that you don't want that and kind of trusting your gut there, I think is important. And yes, laying down kind of the law when you first sign with someone and what that means to me to get very specific about what that even looks like that conversation. It's not, first of all, it's not rude to do this. I think a lot of people, writers in particular, feel like they have to walk on eggshells a little bit once they get a rep because it's such a huge hurdle to get one
yeah. It
that
feels so good.
It's just you're so grateful you have to
Uh-huh.
have someone on your team, and then there's this fear like, "Oh, if I lose them, then that's the end of my career or I'm back to square one," and so, like, fear kind of guides you and you start to walk on eggshells, which, as we know from romantic relationships, is never a good place to be. That's the same here. So I think, yes, in those very first conversations you're having with whoever you sign with, you should very much have a meeting, and the meeting should look like this. By the end of this year, this is what you're saying as a writer. By the end of this year, these are the kind of jobs I want to at least be put up for, if not get. Like I want to be staffed on a TV show. I want to be taking meetings at a studio to be able to try and pitch on a movie there. And then in
Mhm.
5 years, this is kind of where I want to be. In 10 years, I want to own my own production company. So just so you're giving your managers and your agents a very clear trajectory that you want to be on so that they understand what their marching orders are. And then part of that conversation is going to be, okay, now that you know what I want on the year, on the 5 year, on the 10 year, what do I need to be doing as a writer to be achieving those goals? Because they know what they need to be doing because you told them. Now they need to tell you what kind of samples you need to be writing, the kinds of relationships you need to be making, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to have a plan for you. So I think you have that meeting up front. And actually, for me and my team, we typically have that conversation at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, so that we're always on the same page for the year to come.
Wow, that's great. Has it ever drastically changed? Like, your plans or your goals? Like, whereas maybe last year you said something, and then this year you're saying something else?
No, I think my goals have always been pretty much the same, but I think what did change is at one point I got an A-list director attached to one of my projects, and to them you could see them light up
Mhm.
because and they said this very clearly in that meeting because you also want your agents to be honest with you. They're like, "Oh, Tasha, that bumps you up to a whole other level now. Like we can now start introducing you to producers who are at a higher level at their company, first of all, but also producers that are just at a higher level generally in the industry. And we could put you up for jobs that are a bit higher now because you have this A-list director attached to your thing. Whereas before, they saw me as at this kind of like middling level, or even like lower than that, and they were kind of sending me out in that direction, to pitching me as that middling person to producers and whatnot, and getting me meetings at that level, and now is sort of a step up. So there's that conversation too, I think, that
Yeah.
you can be having.
Alright, well, let's take this back.
All right.
Let's
We jumped ahead.
um, we did, and, you might have just covered this, but, like, what's your relationship like with your reps? Like, is one stronger than the other with your manager, your agent? I think I know the answer to this. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. For me, my relationship with my manager versus my agents is drastically different. So I have a TV agent, I have two feature agents, and then I have my manager, who is just kind of an independent person. I think I may be her only client. I'm actually not sure, but if it's not just me, it's she has maybe a handful. And my relationship with my manager is like I will invite her to my wedding. We go and do like painting classes together. And she often will just call me to just check in on how I'm doing, non writing wise. And she very much is invested emotionally, personally, as well as career wise and financially in my success. And I think, yeah, I would definitely consider her a very good friend and trust her creatively. And then my agents, I love them as well. um, but like they don't read all my stuff that I'm writing, whereas my manager
Yeah.
does. They'll read it when it's ready to sell, but they're like, I'm working on a bunch of stuff right now. They have not read any of it. So let's just say that they will
Yeah.
instead, if like my manager calls them and says, Tasha's doing good, I read the draft, it's good. That's enough for them. They don't need to read it. So that's my relationship with them. But like they're still my team. I still, talk to them probably once every couple weeks, just kind of updating. They're checking in with me, I'm checking in with them. What about you? Like your relationship is also similar but different.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I feel like with my manager, he's also a friend, but I probably would invite him to my wedding if I wasn't already married.
You guys hang out and like before pandemic would go out to drinks and improv
Yeah.
club and
Oh, yeah, yeah. I love him. He's great, but I don't know how it happened. he's a friend of mine at this point, you know? He's always very honest with me about stuff, and there's a very good balance between the work and, friendship, I guess you could say. And then agent-wise, exactly the same. Like, on the agent side, it's all work related. I don't hang out with him, although I have once, and it was on accident. And, and, um, you know, I just talk to him when something's needed, when there's a final draft of something, I can kick ideas off of him. And this is like my agent for years now, but we're not as close as my manager. I think that's kind of how it is, unless you're a writer who had friend like was a friend with an agent and you kind of have been with them through different iterations of their career and then you just become buddies over like 15 years of being in the industry.
I have definitely heard of people who are friends with their agents, but it is kind of what you described, like, they knew them as they were coming up in the business maybe, or maybe they don't have a manager,
Right.
and they've been with this agent for so long that they needed to use their agent as their manager, like, this relationship we have with our managers, they've just kind of projected onto their agents. I guess I just never needed that because I had my manager. But it's to each their own. It's honestly like what makes a good relationship with your reps is what you feel like it should be.
Wow. That's deep. I feel like there's a couple levels to that.
I remember there was a time where Cousin Pete had left the business, my first
Sh-
manager.
Shout out to cousin Pete.
Shout out to Cousin Pete. And I was in that middling phase of like, oh God, what do I do? I'm not going to have a career without a manager. I'm lost and confused. And luckily,
Hmm.
I had agents, so they kind of set me up on. I know you hate this metaphor, but this kind of like internet speed dating situation where I went to all these different management companies, some of them very big. And I remember trying to like ask for what I wanted. And then they would in return tell me the kind of manager that they were. And I really appreciated that honesty because I could be like, okay, you're that kind of manager. I don't want that. Thanks. you know,
Wow. Yeah,
I
that's
think
cool.
it's very much, it's very important for you in those first meetings when you're, because they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them too. So you need to
Yeah.
kind of be, and this is what I would say in the meetings is like, I really would like a manager that I can kind of use as a creative partner to go back and forth and kind of really get in on the ground floor with some of this stuff and get in the dirt with me. And some reps would be like, okay, that's not really me.
Hmm.
I'll be there when you're ready to sell, but that's not really me, or I'm not good at that, or whatever. Or they'll be like, oh, we have other people at the company who can do that, but not me. And I'll be like, well, then I'm not going to sign with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So saying that up front is actually not rude. It's absolutely well within your rights to do. And again, remember in those first meetings, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Even though you don't feel that way, you're going to feel scared and you're going to feel like you absolutely have to sign with this person because they reached out with you and you don't have anyone else. But as we've talked about before, picking the wrong person can lead to disasters.
Man, I get so worked up with this like topic because of the power dynamic that exists that it's like the first time you meet with these people, it's like you're talking to like a disappointed parent or something, and you just
So
wanna make them
true.
feel good. You're like, "Just like me. Just
So
here,
true.
I poured my heart out on these pages, and do you like it? Oh, thank God."
Yeah.
Anyway,
Again, just the metaphor here is this a romantic relationship you'd want to be in? Just think about that.
I'm gonna figure out a better metaphor because it makes so much sense, the relationship one, but I wanna figure out a
Too much
better one.
sense. Yeah,
It
you wanna
makes
be
too
more
much sense,
clever.
and everyone uses it, so I wanna figure out a new one. But alright, so going back to your manager because that's who you have your stronger relationship with. After you signed with her, what happens then?
I think you have that kind of come to Jesus meeting where you very clearly state what you want in
Mhm.
the year in terms of your writing goals,
Okay.
and then you get their feedback on how to achieve those writing goals. And I think you are also out of that meeting, you want to get a clear understanding of what they're supposed to be doing. And I don't think you leave that meeting until they give you some kind of answer. And that answer should look like, okay, you want a job at a studio, then we're going to try and get you meetings at production companies that have deals at studios. That's a great first step and that's doable. That's something they can do because they you can send them your sample, they can send that out to even if you're just meeting with like the creative executive or even like the coordinator who's on their way to becoming an executive at these meetings. At least you're getting face time at meetings with companies that have deals at studios. You're one step closer. So it's just
It's good to
having
meet
these
anyone.
clear, yeah, exactly. It's clear to have it's good to have these clear marching orders. So that I think would be the first step once you actually sign with someone so that you're on the same page. Because I think a really big thing I keep hearing from writers who just sign with someone is, well, what do I do now? Like, what am I, should I be emailing them stuff?
Yeah.
Are they supposed to be reading my stuff? Like, what? I'm like, well, you should establish that right up front. And that comes from you saying, I want someone who reads my stuff with me. I want someone who does this. I want someone who does that. So be clear. And again, it's not rude to do that. It's what you should be doing. And I think also, to be honest, I'm not a manager, but I would imagine a manager appreciates that. They appreciate someone who comes in with a plan because they have so many clients usually that their bandwidth will depend on which client they believe in, which means which client is working the most, which client
Mhm.
is improving the most, which client seems to have the most ambition. They're going to, funnel their energy towards that person. And if you come in with a plan, well, I think you're way ahead of a lot of writers who don't.
Yeah, I think it's really important to voice that out because th that's essentially how they think of you.
Yeah. Yeah, they can more clearly wrap their mind around the kind of writer you wanna be, and that means they can pitch you better. So you're benefiting them as well. So then, I mean, we kind of touched on a lot of these, but I think to make it sort of easy, in a perfect world for you, what do you think makes for great representation? Like, what are the components of a good rep? What is like the checklist? If you could make a checklist of what the best rep looks like, what do you think that is?
My manager. Moving on. I'm just kidding.
Just sign with my manager and you're good.
I'm good.
Jay-Z.
No, he's the great yeah, Jay-Z. No, I think, first of all, they need to be on the same page as you in terms of, like, what you wanna write. Let's just start there. "Hey, this is what I wanna write. You agree with me?" Someone who responds, someone who's open to collaboration. For me, with a manager, someone who's developmental, kind of like a hustler, I guess. Like, that's my personal take. Like, that's what I really personally appreciate out of reps.
How can you
Which
tell
one
that your rep is a hustler?
What I mean by that is just someone who's, like, very, very hungry and constantly trying to grow their own connections as well as mine. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and I got that sense from him, and I think my reps are just very hungry, and I never got a sense that they're, like, burned out, and anytime I send someone something, they're responding to me or they're trying to set up meetings, everyone's very responsive about it. So, I guess it's hard that's a good question, it's hard to pinpoint. I think you can just tell.
Yeah.
You just know, Tasha.
I think that also younger agents and managers tend to be very hungry because they're so new. Just like
Yeah.
writers who are kind of at the start of their career taking any job they can get. I
Mhm.
think that's similar to a younger rep who's just starting out. And oftentimes the
How
advice
young are we
is,
talking?
I mean, it's like it honestly depends. There are some, I mean, agents and big management companies will groom their assistants to then become junior agents and managers, and those people are super hungry because they have no client list to themselves at all, and as they're transitioning to becoming a manager or agent themselves, they have to prove themselves to the company by developing a network, actively developing a client list of their own, and
Yeah.
so they're kind of willing to take people that maybe they're senior reps aren't going to be taking, which means newer writers. So
Yeah.
that could be, I mean, I'm not going to say it age wise, but like that's the general career place what I'm talking about, a young up and comer. But your reps are obviously not those people and they're still big hustlers. But there are some agents and managers who you can kind of tell sit on their laurels the same way that some writers can and when they hit a certain level where they have their client base who are working really well for them and
Yeah.
bringing in the money, and they don't have to do a lot to continue to bring in money. And so they're just not going to do a lot for you. And again, that's a gut thing you're going to have to feel, but just pay attention to that personality trait that's out there.
Yeah. Well, what's your checklist?
It's a lot of the same thing you're talking about. For my manager, I don't require them to be a hustler. I require more of a creative hand holding. That stays between you and me, that word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The They listen to what you want in your career, which you kinda said, and they're also very clear with you on how to go about doing that, even if it's some tough love, like, "Tasha, your samples aren't ready for the studio level, you need a better sample." Okay, at least I have a direction, you know? Like, at least I know what I need to be doing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they
I've
respond to you quickly is a big one, as you said.
Oh my
Sorry, I
god.
interrupted you.
No, I was just gonna say kind of along the lines of what you're saying is just complete transparency, even though I know that's maybe impossible to get in Hollywood, but just
You wanna at
I
least
really
feel like it's a complete transparency. It
yeah.
probably is
I don't
not.
yeah. I mean, when I remember even with, my manager, like, getting notes at a certain point and just completely him just kinda shitting on certain things and this and that, and I really appreciated it because it was like, even though it was, hurting my soul, it was, like, helping me in a sense where I was like, "Okay, this makes sense. I see where you're coming from, and I just want you to be honest with me and not lying to me and like, 'Oh, I'll do this later. I'll do this later. This person's not available. I can't set you up on this meeting. Just tell me the truth.'" And if I'm
Right,
not
just
ready
tell
or
me they
something.
didn't like the script, because then I
Yeah.
know that I need a better sample.
I wonder if, like, if Jay-Z ever hears this, he's just gonna be laughing and being like, "Oh my god, I've lied to him so many times."
Poor little Josh thinks that I'm honest with him.
Oh, this poor, poor man.
Alright, checklist. Um,
Boom.
yes, responds to you quickly. I think for me, actually, my reps always reply the same day. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Um, are they actively getting you generals? Are they actively at least trying to get you pitches? That's number 1. Like, that's
Oh, yeah.
basic job description for them. And what's sad is I feel like the majority of reps I or writers I talk to say their reps aren't doing that very basic thing. So that you're if your rep's not doing that, they're not repping you, right?
This actually brings up something interesting because if you're just starting out, you're just writing specs, something to that, you write, and like, let's say you have a spec that goes out, you do the coach and water tour, you do all of that, you meet everyone, you have your generals, and then let's say nothing comes of it. You're on to the next project. There's this gap of time when you're working on your next project where maybe you feel like you should be going on meetings, but I think from the rep's point of view, it's like, get me something else. You just had all of these meetings.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does, but also I would get meetings off of a script I wrote in college, like I don't know how I'm not gonna do the math there, but a long time
5
ago.
years ago. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
5 years ago,
Mhm.
and that's risky business because, you don't want everyone to be like, "Really?" Like, all around town, only everyone has only ever read 1 script from Tasha. Does she have nothing else? But,
This is this is
yeah,
crazy. You wrote something in college that you were still taking meetings on?
black belt.
I've like oh, oh my god. Oh, that's right. I
Yeah.
forgot. Well, you were actively working on that. I thought you meant something that, like, you had written once and then
Oh, I guess I had done drafts. This is my bounty hunter western. That was my main sample until very recently. But again, it was my main sample until very recently. So it was a movie, a feature sample that they would just send out, and it kept getting me meetings and kept getting me meetings. So I actually have never had the conversation with my reps of, Tasha, we need something new from you in order to send you out on meetings. That's never been something, a conversation I've had to have. And I know it's a very common conversation, but I've
yeah.
never had it, and so it confuses me because if my reps are able to get me many, many meetings off of an old script, I don't understand why that can't be true for everyone else. That being said, I'm also constantly always working on new things.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like I have this one sample and I'm not producing it. I'm not, working on anything else in the meantime. It's just that just happened to be my best sample, even though I was
Yeah.
working on other things, if that makes
Well,
sense.
it does make sense, and I think that's the key is that you were working on something else. I feel like there's a trap where and we've talked about this, but you write one thing and that's it. You're kind of like stuck. You don't know what to write next. You're hoping maybe something sold, or you're hoping to get more from one particular script. I know this has happened to people, friends of mine, where it's like you write something, you spend all this time, you take meetings, it doesn't sell, and then what? And you don't have the next thing to work on. So in your case, I guess the moral of the story is to always be working on something because it reminds your reps that you're working on something.
Strong yes. thinking again about sort of a checklist of things, I think something this is maybe just icing on the cake, but something that my reps do is they try to help me in places that I'm weaker in. So like pitching,
Oh,
they very much kind of helped me in those early stages in particular to better myself at pitching. So invited me to come into their offices and just practice pitch to them. And that benefits them too, right? Because then I get a job and then they get commission. So
yeah, no, it's so
but
great.
yeah, so they're helping me there. They offer to help me be better at being in generals, which I didn't take because it's like I'm not as awkward as I seem, I swear. You guys just scare me.
This is so crazy to me that you need, like, you're not the person to me that would need help in a general. So this is, like, mind-boggling to me that someone would say to you, like,
That just shows you like how shy and scared I was when I first met my agents.
"Sh your writing must have been fucking amazing." They're like,
She's so awkward, but she can write.
"No, no, no, I don't believe it." One day I'm gonna ask, your manager when if I ever meet her.
I would like that. I would love some behind the scenes information, please.
Yeah, at your wedding, like you said you would invite her
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Um, I think, something that you said, that they're honest with you is really important, and I think there's a line in there where, there's dismissive and then there's honest. Meaning,
Yeah,
like, I had an agent at one point who he read my stuff, he read my TV samples, and he did the whole, like, agenty thing of like, "Oh, yeah, it's super good, I have some notes, but, it's good, but what do you have next?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? If it's good, I don't need to give you a next thing." You need to
yeah.
be able to at least get me interviews for jobs, at least get me into, staff writing interviews based on this thing you said is good. And then finally it came out the truth is it's not good, or he doesn't think it's good. He doesn't think it's good enough to get me a staff writing job. I need to come up with something else. And then I took that and I was like, okay, that's a note that I can work on. But then I started hearing other writers say they're getting staffing job interviews based on feature scripts. And I have a really good feature sample. So why
Yeah.
is my TV agent not trying to get me staff writing jobs based on feature sample? Why is he not basically trying every single avenue possible to get me a staff writing job? And that became very confusing, and years went by, and every time I would have that yearly meeting of, "Hey, I wanna get in a staff writing job," I would see no result from that, and so my gut just started feeling a little sick, and I could kinda tell that something was off there, that he claimed to be honest with me, but was actually just being completely dismissive, and I don't think he was actually submitting me to jobs. I think he was claiming he was,
Wow.
and that my sample wasn't good enough, but I don't think he was. Because as soon as I got a different TV agent, the story completely changed, and I suddenly have, like, 5 TV jobs.
Wow, can we say the name of the guy?
No.
Okay, good. Well, it's really interesting because this kinda goes back to the whole power dynamic. With reps, I feel like writers sometimes think that reps just know best. They know
Yes.
everything, and you go into these meetings where you're like, "This person knows more than me." And it's just really strange because a lot of times reps are human beings who are just afraid to tell you the truth because maybe they have their own issues and they're afraid to double down on their opinion because they might be wrong.
Hmm.
And I just think it's really important to remember that at any time this might be going off topic of how to have a good relationship with your manager or agent,
No, I
but
think
it's just
advice that they're human is really good
yeah, it is. I
reminder.
mean, you just have to remind yourself that, like, everyone's working in Hollywood. We're all trying to get through this and they're human beings. Maybe they don't know as much as you think they know.
Yeah, we go in there 100% thinking that, and I think so many writers are insecure about their writing or just unsure. So on
Yeah.
some spectrum of unsure to insecure, that as soon as a rep tells them you've not done enough or this script isn't good enough, we believe them. And they may be right, and you may have some ego there, but do a gut check because maybe they're just being dismissive of you.
Yeah.
So that would be on my checklist, is that they're honest but not dismissive. I think it's important that they know the kind of writer that you are,
Mhm.
because if they know that you're an action adventure writer, they will not set you up at companies that only do comedies. If
Right.
they're doing that, they're not paying attention to you.
Yeah, be on the same page about that. That's very
Yeah.
important.
It's a waste of your time to meet at places that only do comedies if you don't write comedies. So, yeah, again, that's something you guys will talk about in those meetings that you have about strategy.
Mhm.
And I know that a big topic of conversation for some people for the checklist is that they have to be great at notes. And for some people, they don't care. So, what is your opinion on that? Like, do you feel like your agent has to be good at notes?
Not at all.
Is your agent good at notes?
As he's great. You know what's crazy is because my agent, we usually give him a polished thing where it's like, "Hey, this is ready to go out and people are ready to see it and we're all getting on the same page to send this out in the world." But sometimes he'll come back with 3 or 4 smaller notes. There's nothing anything that's too major, but these like little tweaks that make things better, and it's always refreshing to see because you're like, "Oh my god, he read it. Cool." But yeah, my
That's the
agent
bar. He read it.
no. But yeah, no, of course, I do no, I mean, I actually think that agents and managers should be good at notes to some degree. Like, you should be able if you're a rep, you should be able to read a product and think to yourself, "Here's where the problem is."
I think it depends again on what relationship you want with your agent. Like I have Michelle, my manager, for notes. And like I said, they,
Mhm.
she'll literally just call the agent to be like, it's good or it's bad. And they don't even have
Yeah.
to read it. But like I said, the show I sold to Amazon, they had to read it before we sent it to Amazon, just as a final, like, I guess, hurdle barrier to the next thing. They just have to read it before they actually send it out to sell, and they had notes, and a lot of them are really bad, but a lot of them were also like, "Oh, we hadn't thought about that. That was a blind spot for us, and we're glad
Yeah.
you saw that, and we'll fix that before we continue to send it to Amazon." So you always need, I think, an agent notes, but is it absolutely necessary? Not in my situation because I have a manager for that. If you
Yeah.
need your agents to be good at notes, that's something you need to be honest about or let go of it because if you have agent and they're not good at notes, then you just need to find a different outlet for notes. Like you need to find a writers group, you need to find someone else in your life that you trust creatively because I don't think it's a reason to fire your agent because notes
No.
are a
No,
very
no, no.
small part of what an agent actually does, interestingly.
My brain is just programmed that managers are there to help you with development and notes. Agents are there to help you jobs, more business side of things.
Yeah. That's been my experience as well. I know other people have different relationships with their agents, but that's our and I think it's the more common situation as well.
Yeah, we're right. Forget everyone else. Moving on.
What do you feel like is the fair thing to ask of your manager? Like the expectations of a manager. What do you think is fair for a writer to ask of them
In general, or like when you first start working together?
in general?
Yeah, I think what's fair is always. I can't believe that responding in a timely manner is actually something that separates people. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
It's
But yeah, no,
basic
that's
human decency at this point.
it's basically it's like don't show up late to dinner.
Yeah.
Be at places on time. You just learn these things. I mean, my general expectations are just to, get notes back, get them back in a timely manner, respond to questions as absurd as they may seem. And what I mean by that is, hey, I want to meet this person, or can you set me up at a meeting here? I want to go on a general here, or whatever the case. Is that they respond back and say, yes, I'm on it, or no, and this is why. So there's that level of transparency, I guess, to their decision making process when it
Yeah.
relates to your career.
Yeah, you say, "I
Um,
wanna go meet at Pixar," and they say, "Okay, Tasha, you need to first write a sample that,
yeah,
would work at Pixar."
yeah. Tasha Black Bell is not going to go well at
Yeah.
Pixar,
Why?
but
Just kill people, it's fine.
yeah, no, no, the kid's dying it, and I think my general expectations aren't asking too much. It's just kind of like the general stuff of writing, writer notes, response time,
Yeah,
set me up on meetings. Come on, man.
yeah, yeah. And then kind of flipping that then, what do you feel like is fair for a manager to expect from their writer?
That's a great question. And I think it's fair to say that a writer should always be writing. A writer should always be generating ideas, and a writer should also be respond in a timely manner and get back and be upfront about your career ambitions, I suppose. Because I know we're talking a lot about like our reps need to work for us, but at the same time, it kind of rests on our shoulders to tell people what we want.
Yeah. And I think too, writers who are able to build and expand their own network without without a manager is also looked on favorably, I think.
That's a
And I mean,
really great point.
even for you as a writer, it's so that the the bulk of your writing opportunities don't sit on the shoulders of one person. You're also out there meeting new people, meeting new reps, generating your own generals, which we've talked about how to do that in other episodes. So I think that's an expectation that's fair for a rep to ask of their writer.
I completely agree. I should have said that. I'm kind of pissed at
Haha,
myself
I
that I
took
didn't.
it.
Yeah, you
I
did
got
take
it.
it. No, but that goes back to the hustler of it all. It's like I feel like just in our industry, you have to actively be doing things. And maybe that doesn't mean going out and, grabbing drinks with people. That just means like, hey, Tasha, do you know this person? I want to meet this person. Can you help me? Can you set an introduction or like an intro or posting your script to competitions or websites or whatever the case? You're just constantly active to meet new people.
Yep. I think that's super important. A thing that I hated learning as a writer because I don't like meeting people. I don't like that that's part of my job, but, it actually turned out okay.
Yeah, I love it. I got it's like the best part of the job, not writing, meeting people.
So I think this is a really interesting question that I've struggled with a lot, particularly early, which is, do you feel like you can share your insecurities with your manager or your agent? Or do you feel like you're still supposed to keep up this like face in front of them and kind of like sell yourself to them that you're doing okay, you got it handled, or are you kind of more honest?
I am pretty much always doing okay. That is the beginning and the end of that. I,
Yeah,
um,
you're
I
always like, I
I
got this. No problem.
I got this. I hate cracking open that insecure. I mean, of course, and I've been working on something for a really long time. Of course, with my manager, I'll talk to him and just say, "Hey, man, I'm struggling here. I've been insecure about this script thing." But when we're talking about big career aspirations and things like that, no, I got this. We're good. Why? Where do you fall in all this?
I don't know, this look on my face is because I'm trying to think of what I do. Definitely to my agents, I think I'm more of an "I got this, no problem, things are
Hmm.
great." But to my manager, who I'd invite to my wedding, I'm a little bit more honest, but I think they would all get scared if I just sort of lost it and was like, "I can't do this. I can't I don't know how I'm gonna be able to pull this off." But you know what? As I'm saying this, I've literally said that to my manager. So I think I am, yes, I am very honest with my manager, and I will tell her pretty much when I'm at a breaking point and don't want to do something or feel like I can't. And you
Hmm.
know what is so great about her is that she doesn't do what I think she's going to do, what I'm terrified she's going to do, which is panic and be like, "Oh god, did I make a mistake repping Tasha?" She doesn't ever do
Yeah.
that. She never judges me. Instead, I get exactly what I need, which again, why it's like a romantic relationship, Josh. You ask for what you
Hmm.
need.
Yes, for what you need.
She will then come back being like, "Okay, you want to give up? Well, let's talk about it, and I'll try and help you through."
I'd be like, "Fucking quit. Go quit. See what happens."
Quitter, you quitter. Yeah, you'd be a great manager.
No, 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 that's great of her. Well, it's good that you're upfront with your manager, but I think you have a very unique relationship, and it should be noted that you've been with her for years. I've been with Jay-Z for years. So this wasn't like out of nowhere, this great friendship happened. It took some time to get there. right?
Yes. Yes, I agree. I don't think right away, even with the first couple years, I was spouting all my insecurities and crying on her shoulder.
Right.
But I do think there's a level of honesty from yourself that will be appreciated and will benefit you. If you are about to go on a pitch and oh, here's a better example. And this happened to me early in my career, where I was like, look, I don't know how I am going to pay rent by the time like in 6 months. I don't have
Mhm.
another job lined up, and I'm gonna have to go get a part-time job somewhere. And I remember being terrified to tell my agents that because there was a sense that I had failed and that they would not believe in me anymore if they knew I had to do another job besides writing.
Yeah.
But it eventually came to that because I had to tell them, like, "Look, I can't go take that meeting at 2 PM because I now have a full-time job that I'm working at, and I'd like to get out of that, please." But I think there has been points in my career where I had to be very upfront with them because I needed them to know that how desperately I needed work, and I think that's
Yeah.
okay
I
because
think that
you're supposed
of
to be a
course.
team, and that's their job is to help you not have to have a day job.
Yeah, we're human beings.
I mean, if the pandemic has taught us nothing, it's that we are all the same. And if your rep can't kind of meet you at a human level that way, I don't know. Maybe you should not be with them.
Wow.
That is not my job to tell you that. That is totally up to you. Okay. So, how often would you say you touch base with your reps regarding new scripts, development ideas, submissions that you've received? Like, how much is too much? How much is ordinary for you?
So I'm in a unique position as I think you are with your manager, um, because I kind of I talk with Jay Z about stuff often, and we do check-ins every other week. I feel like
Like over
writing
the
wise.
phone or email wise?
Well, I'll just drop him a text or email, or if we need to get on the phone, we get on the phone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's never really level of importance, obviously, like if there's a pitch or something or whatever the case. If we need to talk on the phone, we'll talk on the phone. So it's pretty often with my manager, but agent is every few months, multiple months, where if I'll get a random check in, and I think it's like a courtesy check in, if anything. Why? What about you? You check, well, you're in right now, I feel like you're always talking to your reps.
I feel like I've gone through stages. I think early on when I didn't have a lot of work, I was kind of a squeaky wheel in a way where I wanted to just always make sure they knew I was there because I was well
Hmm.
aware that it was easy to forget about me because I wasn't bringing them in a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so, and I also wanted them to know that I wasn't a hack. So I would every couple weeks, I think, literally two, would send them an update email. Just be like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is where I'm at with it. I met this person on my own, someone I
Yeah.
had drinks with on my own. Here is an uh this is another way that I can communicate with them where I'll see that there's a really cool book that just got published or a producer bought a book and it's a really cool piece of IP. I would copy paste that article, email them and be like, "Hey, can you look into this book for me because this is really cool and I'd love to engage on it." And
Yeah.
that has very often led to them getting me a meeting at that company so I could talk about that book. So it's guiding them in that way, but yeah, sending them update emails has always been really helpful for me early on because it told them that I was actively working and it
Hmm.
it forced them to see my name in their mailbox every
Yeah.
couple
No,
weeks to remember
that
that
goes a long
oh
way.
yeah, Tasha's still writing. Maybe I should get that girl, a meeting somewhere so she'll stop bugging me. And then also every time I have a general, I'll email them afterwards to be like, "Here's how the general went. These are the things we talked about. These are the
Hmm.
things that you should be following up on, please." Meaning, let's see, they discussed a book they were trying to buy in the general. They haven't bought it yet, but they're trying to buy it. So I would email my reps afterwards and be like, "This is what we talked about. One thing we talked about was the book that they're about to buy. Could you guys keep up on that? Because I'd love to engage once they actually buy that book." So they'll keep tabs on it. So it's things like that. We're just kind of engaging back and forth and just always it's me telling them, "Hey, I'm working. Hey, I'm still working
Yeah.
over here."
Well, so you just made me think of something. I early on, I would reach out to my agent. I didn't do this often. I didn't know I was really doing this, but I did it. Is that if I saw that he maybe had sold something or he had something happened with one of his clients, I would reach out to like say, "Hey, congratulations," or something to that extent, where I didn't really actually mean it. I just wanted to touch base because of me,
Yeah.
of course.
I love that honesty.
and and I didn't mean it at all. And I guess my point being is that if you can just be honest about why you're reaching out to someone, because you're not going to get the response you want if you like compliment someone. He'll just write back and be like, "Thanks." You're
Oh, wait,
looking,
so what
whereas
is
I'm
your advice here? Like, what do
my
you
oh
wish you had done instead?
my advice was whatever I was thinking at that time was to just kind of be upfront about that. Maybe it's whatever you're saying of like maybe I wanted to tell him I was writing something new, but I didn't because I wanted him to ask me about it. Or I'm
Again,
trying to
like a
like,
relationship.
yeah, okay, fine. This is a relationship. It's full on relationship. It's like when you're being a little passive and uh but um so my point being is just be upfront, I guess. Like I think when I heard you say this, like when you would tell your agents that what you're working on or giving an update, that's the best way to go about doing it. Don't do like the back door of, hey, I saw that one of your clients did something cool. That's awesome. Just because you want them to write back and say, hey, well, thanks. What are you working on?
Yeah, because then I think you get insecure about that. You're like, "Well, why didn't he ask about me? Like, why didn't he
Yeah.
ask what was going on with me? Does he not care?"
And then you have to send an awkward email after that saying, here, this is what I'm working on. Oh, hey, since I was thinking about you,
Oh my
by the
god.
way.
This is flashing me back to, like, early dating Tasha.
Oh God.
Young
Well,
Tasha.
this is actually a good segue about something, that reps can smell fear. They smell blood in the water, and I feel like if you're that insecure human being, they just fucking know.
They know. They know. They'll take advantage of you. I don't mean really take advantage of you, but they'll take advantage of the relationship. They will not call you back. They will not
Yeah.
email you back. They won't push you to meetings, and
They'll take you for granted because they
they'll
know
take you
that
for
you're just
granted.
gonna be there, like a side piece or something.
I
Um,
mean, I think that the biggest I I do think the biggest thing preventing writers from having good relationships with their reps, the common thread is a fear is an insecurity in the writer that they're going to lose their rep. That
mhm,
if I annoy them, they're not gonna ever take my call, or they're just gonna abandon me entirely, and then my career will be nothing. And there's some reality to the fact that they are gatekeepers, and there's a big catch 22 in our business that you can't get a job until you have a rep. Not that that's always true. It's just a common way to get jobs. It's the most common way to get jobs is through an agent or manager until you've developed your own network, which is going to take
yeah,
a while. So I get that there's that fear and insecurity there, but I have never met a single writer whose relationship based on fear and insecurity with their rep has ever done anything but bring them anxiety. So it's like, why even have it? They're not benefiting you.
yeah,
If you're building a network of friends who are also writers, they will eventually be able to recommend you to a rep who's better. Or conversely, stop being afraid and take control of the relationship, I think, and do all the things we've been talking about, which is email them, ask for a meeting so that you can sit down with them face to face over Zoom and say, here's what I want. How do we do it? And you can say in that meeting and be honest and be like, this hasn't been working for me up till now. And I feel like there's something missing. What is my part in that? Like, what am I doing that's wrong? And then how can we fix that? So address it, I think. You don't have to abandon ship. I don't think that should be your first step, but I think addressing it and not being afraid to do so is super important.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we say like they work for you, right? They earn money only because of you. They cannot do what you can do. Their sole job is to make you successful. Remember that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, the ideal relationship is not the boss and they are the employer. You don't want to also make that shift. Similar to our confidence episode, you don't want to go full ego on anyone. You
Mhm.
want it to be a team. And in fact, whenever I email my reps, I always like, "Hey team," just as a helpful reminder, we're a team. Um,
"Hey, everyone, we're working together."
working together. And I think an example of how we're a team, let me just kind of like paint the picture for, let's say you got a job. Okay. How does this happen? An agent will, again, this is just one version, but an agent will sniff out a job. Basically, they'll find out that there's an open writing assignment somewhere or a book that you'd be perfect to adapt, and they get you a meeting. Well, now
Mhm.
they've done their part of the job. Your part of the job is now getting those producers really excited about you and nailing that pitch so you get the job.
Yeah.
And then the agents step in again and they hype you up to the producer. Before the pitch, after the pitch, they are hyping you up. They are information gatherers. So they will tell you, they should tell you, how many people are pitching on this job? What are the odds of you getting this job? How much money can you expect to get from the job? Meaning, hey, Tasha, this is going to be a guild minimum job. Just figure out if it's worth your time if you're only going to be making this much versus this other job over here that could be making more. So that's just information for you to mull over yourself. And they'll
Yeah.
also be able to tell you like, are the execs that you'll be working with, are they difficult to work with? Can you expect a good relationship with them if you accept the job? Like, what are you getting into if you get the job? And then, okay, let's say you get the job. Now my agents are going to be working with my lawyer, my agents and manager will be working with my lawyer to secure the best deal. So the lawyer, he's going to be talking to all the lawyers in business affairs. So he's the guy who's supposed to be the jerk, so that I don't have to be right. Ask for things that I would never ask for personally. I would just be like, "Oh, I'm working for free. I don't care."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but that's his job, and the agent and manager's job in terms of the negotiation phase is to talk to the creative executives. So the lawyer's talking to the business executives, the lawyers. My agents and manager, they're talking to the creative executives, the executives that I pitch to, the executives I will be working with. And their job is to kind of smooth things over, any kind of fires my lawyer has created. They're kind of trying to put out. They're just really trying to smooth it over on the creative side.
Yep.
So that's just an example of how it's a team effort to get any job and how and why you should see yourself as a team. Because at every single point, you're going to be needing to work in that manner.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, just to go back to something you said about, like, we've been talking about the dynamic. Even though our reps work for us, we work with them as well. And it's so
Yeah.
easy to be like, "You work for me. I'm the writer. You make nothing." But, it's so easy to do that. But, like, there's a symbiotic relationship between a writer and a rep. Wait, you
Yeah.
hate that word symbiotic, right?
No, synergy is the word I don't
Synergy.
like.
The synerget there's a
There's
very
a
certain
synergy
synergy.
you have to achieve. Yeah. No. On the other
Yeah.
side, though, and maybe this isn't the flip side, but as well as working as a team, I think you can also see your reps as tools too. And I know a lot of writers, particularly writers who like have writing partners and they don't kind of need a creative agent, who tend to take more control of their career, I think, and independence in their career than I do. But these people tend to see their reps as tools, which I think is a very interesting way to look at them and is very viable. Meaning, for example, I just had a pitch uh, last week that I did not tell them about. I did not tell them I was going out for it, did not tell them I was having conversations with the producer. The producer found me because we had been friends for a long time. And
Mhm.
I met him in a general just years and years ago when I was still an assistant. And so he just reached out to me directly. And so I went through the whole like developing a pitch process, actually pitching to Netflix. And then I told them, hey guys, I just did this pitch and it went really well. Because if it didn't go well, I just wasn't going to tell them. But it did go
Right.
well. And so I shot them an email to say, hey, this thing happened. I really love it. Here's why I love it. If you wouldn't mind maybe making a strategic call to Netflix at this point, to kind of convince them, like, do you guys know the Netflix executive I pitched you? If you do, could you guys register a call with them? Because now it's their time to play hype man, right?
Mhm.
So using them as tools in that way is totally okay. Like, that is a super acceptable email to send to them.
Yeah,
And don't be afraid to do it.
I like that.
What do you feel like is the biggest mistake you could make regarding a rep? Like, if you're a new writer and you just got your first manager, do you feel like there's a huge no that you just absolutely do not do to fuck up that relationship?
Um, I think it just is about being very anxious in the beginning, and I think when you approach your reps and now you have okay, so let's say you submit your script to a competition and you just get repped for the very first time. There is the desire to be very anxious about like go 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 go. Like here's my next idea. Here's what I'm doing now now now. I think you just need to be organized with your wants early on. I don't think there's a big glaring no, but I know people who've been in a position where they've been emailing,
Like, what's
and the
too
reps
much?
have
Like, every week?
um, no, 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 I would say every day or 2. I knew someone who couldn't get on the same page with I don't know if it was his manager or agent, but they would email or he would email his reps or rep often, "Here's a new idea, here's a new idea," and trying to just find, like, this new idea to work on, and the rep ended up writing back saying, like, "Dude, chill, like, pump the brakes. You're kind of annoying. Like, organize your thoughts and get it all together."
Interesting.
It always stuck with me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But I
I
don't know if that will necessarily happen. Maybe that's a
I think
weird
that's the big
scenario.
thing that everyone worries about early on is, "Oh my god, am I contacting them too much or too little? Am I saying the right thing right now, or does this make me look stupid
Oh, yeah.
and naive and like I don't know what I'm doing?" Um, but I mean, I do think the biggest mistake is probably that anxiety, those anxiety emails that just happen every few days for sure. Don't
Yeah.
email every week either unless you have something new to report,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of talked about this multiple times, but this, I think, all boils down to just having a good understanding of what you want and voicing that.
Mhm.
And I actually think that happens when you're taking meetings with reps early on, prior to signing with anyone. It's just if there's a synergy between your
Nope.
rep, if there is a mutual understanding about what you want career wise, work wise, I think you kind of walk away knowing the guidelines of how to behave with your reps.
I think that is a really great solution to the problem. It's that, like, you can subdue that anxiety and that fear of, "Oh my god, do I email them now or not now? Not now." If you just have a meeting and then
Hmm.
develop a plan, and then you'll know how often you should be emailing them. You email them
Yeah.
after you finish X, Y, or Z, whatever you've already discussed and talked about. So yeah, I that's a great note, Josh.
It only took an hour, but I got it.
Let's kind of finish by talking about, like, what a relationship with a rep looks like when it's ending.
Oh.
Uh, like, how do you know your relationship with your manager or agent has turned sour? It's never gonna get back to normal.
I only I so I've only had one agent, and so I don't know about him. I've had 2 managers.
3 managers.
I had 3 managers. Alright, but let's not count the first one. That was like let's just move beyond. There was nothing bad with that. That was just, like, poor timing. But my one before Jay-Z, my current manager, as I've talked about and as Tasha had to hear for a long time, went so sour so fast, and it was a brutal ending. I haven't talked to him since we broke up, and I don't even remember what your question was because I got so angry thinking about it. How did it end? I
Well,
tried to call him.
how did you know that it had to end? What was the thing that made you realize you needed to email him and end it?
We could not get on the same page about anything. There was some anger. I don't know what happened along the way, but I just trusted my gut, and I was like, "This is not something's not right about this. This shouldn't be as difficult as it is."
Mhm.
And lo and behold, I tried to give him a call. He didn't respond. He didn't return my call. I ended up dropping him an email, and it was fucking shit hit the fan after that email. But
Yeah.
that was how it all ended.
So, for your experience, it's not being on the same page creatively. And
Yeah,
if
like
we
I said, I just blacked out whatever the question was, and I just went back into my story. Yeah,
I'll sum it up
same
for you.
page.
That's what it
Yeah,
was.
please, just tell me what I'm trying to say here.
I think interestingly too, by the way, and something we don't talk about because that's not kind of who you and I necessarily are, but there are a ton of writers who do not care what their agent thinks about their idea. Like they do not send them a list of log lines. That's just not how
Yeah,
they work. And they go off and they write their thing and then they'll come to their agent. And that's totally fine if that's you. Completely fine. That's really cool. And I wish I was more like that. Um,
yeah.
I unfortunately have to always run things by my manager just to be because I'm like, is this a good idea? I don't know. Help me.
But the other thing, uh, is like you want everyone on the same this goes back to the team. You want everyone on the same page and to be excited about your idea.
It's interesting because I actually got a job once, so it was actually a paid gig, that I got after I had my current manager. So after I actually signed with Michelle, I got the job, but I had been kind of talking with the producers and developing
Mhm,
it before her. And I didn't really mention it to her that I was working on this until it was kind of too late. I was already on board. Checks were being signed. And I remember her saying very clearly to me, I wish you had told me you were working on this. And I was like, well, why? Like, what does it matter? Look, it's a job. She's like, yeah, but it's so difficult to execute. It was this very bizarre, trippy, like psychedelic, rated R Alice in Wonderland
oh,
thriller.
yeah.
Okay. Um, and it was very hard to execute, but I was so confident that I could do it. And I just didn't need
Mhm,
her advice on that. And it turns out she was right in some ways. And that if I'd had her on a little bit earlier, at the development stage, she could have been like, Tasha, that's going to be really difficult to sell that version that you're thinking of. Maybe you pivot
mhm,
into this version. Or whatever that conversation looks like from a creative perspective. Like she could have gotten in on the ground floor a little earlier to make that script possibly better. Cause I unfortunately did not deliver the script that I had hoped to. And that has always stuck with me. So it's not like I feel like I need approval from my managers and constantly need to be sending them log lines to decide what I'm doing next. But it's just it's a good creative choice for me to do that. So if that's the relationship you want, again, that's totally fine. If you don't want to do that, also totally fine. There's no right way in
no, I
that
agree,
regard,
and a
I
lot of
think.
times your well, manager in this case, maybe if you send an idea and it's almost there, maybe they can chime in with something to get it there.
Yep, it's just another voice.
And the last thing I wanna say about this is it's good to check with your reps because they know if there are scripts like this circulating in the world.
That's true.
That's all I got.
Can we end then with the sort of finale of this relationship if it goes sour, which is how do you fire a rep? I've actually had to do it once before,
Yeah.
and I know you had because we just talked about it. Uh, how did you do it?
I should have made sure I talked to him on the phone, but I emailed him and just said, "Hey, this isn't working out."
Well, I called my rep who I
And
fired,
what'd you
so
say?
just I don't know what
Oh
that
my
says
god,
about
you
me,
manned
but
up.
um, it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever had to do in my entire life. But what happened for me was uh, after that speed dating situation, I finally found someone I really loved. He was so great. It was at a company that was really up and coming. They were going to be big, and they are now. And 2 weeks into that relationship, he calls me and says, I'm
Mm,
leaving the company. I'm going to pass you on to another rep at our company. And I knew that rep. I knew that rep from when I worked at as an assistant at a studio, actually, because he had been an agent at the time. So I remember hearing phone calls with him all the time and how he talked about projects and clients. And I remember
wow.
not liking it. And I remember in the room, I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. He's a manager now. That's a different relationship. maybe he's a manager for a reason because he doesn't want to have to be this kind of agent, 800-pound gorilla in the room. But the thing that made me realize this couldn't work and made me have to make that really tough phone call was he shit on one of the projects that I had
Oh,
done, and it was a yeah, it was a job that I really enjoyed. It wasn't the best script I've ever written, but it was a great experience, and the people I worked with, I really liked them, and they were a really tiny company. Um, but I remember his point of view was, "We don't want you to be working with these tiny companies. Like, fuck them. Like, we want you to be working at these big companies." And I forget what the actual like the fuck them was about something specific. Like I think they wanted a rewrite or something. They wanted to like maintain a
mhm.
relationship with me to potentially write something else. And he was like, nope, like we're going to completely ignore them and we're only going to focus on big companies, which is just not the kind of person I want to be. Those aren't the kind of relationships I want to create. Like, I don't care if they're a small company,
Yeah.
they were good people and they gave me a job. And so after kind of talking to several people about this, I decided I have to let this guy go. I can't work this way morally. And the phone call actually, firing your rep is going to be easier than you think, I think, because they've had these conversations a lot themselves. And it's really what you say is like, I don't think this is working out. I just feel like there's a personality difference here. And I thought it was going to be a much longer conversation and I was going to have to be more detailed, but he's like, "Okay, yeah, I get it." I was like, "Okay. Well, cool. Like, thanks for all your time." He's like, "Cool,
Wow.
thanks." That was it. It was like a 5 to 10 minute conversation.
That's so crazy. I'm sure so much brain energy went into that moment.
It's just like a week of just anxiety from me
Yeah.
waking up at 3 AM like, "Oh god, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just stick it out because it's too scary."
Yeah, it's just easier to be in this bad relationship.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and what sucked is I didn't have a manager for a while, and then I found the
Yeah,
right one,
it's okay.
which again, Josh, just like relationships. And guess what? You can apply to programs and get into contests and festivals without a rep. So you can start building a network
Yeah.
without them. If you're scared of that in between phase of not having one, don't be because there are things that you can do.
Yeah. Boom.
So that's it. We walked through good relationship and then how to deal with it if it sours and becomes a bad relationship.
Yeah, I feel like we just covered a lot.
We did. It was a lot of information. I'm sorry, but hopefully at least a
Yeah.
fraction of that was helpful. All right, should we wrap it up with our quote of the day, which feels applicable?
Let's do it.
Don't lose faith in what you are trying to do, even though you will get pummeled emotionally left and right. There are a lot of no's to any yes, and that's okay. Jennifer Lee. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us at act2writers@gmail.com. That's act2 spelled out, writers@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at act2writers. And that's what we got for you today. This episode was edited by Paul Lundquist, music by 414 Beg, which you can find on Spotify.